branches of the American government were consumed today by the story of one former government official, ex-National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Aides to President Obama disclosed that the outgoing president warned President-elect Trump about hiring Flynn. In the afternoon, former acting Attorney General Sally Yates testified in front of a Senate subcommittee about her own warning. A meeting with the White House counsel on January 26th to tell the Trump team that Flynn had lied about his contacts with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak.
Every time this lie was repeated, and the misrepresentations were getting more and more specific as they were coming out, every time that happened, it increased the compromise. And to state the obvious, you don't want your national security advisor compromised with the Russians.
18 days elapsed between Yates's warning to the White House and the day Flynn was fired. That's 18 days of high-level meetings and critical foreign policy decisions that are likely to become the central issue in the investigation into Flynn. 2 days after the Yates meeting, Flynn sat in on the first direct phone call Trump made as president to Vladimir Putin. They discussed defeating ISIS, Iran's nuclear program, and reestablishing ties between the two nations. On day 6, Flynn appeared in the briefing room to put Iran on notice for a recent missile test. On the morning of day 8, Flynn called his foreign counterparts, including a Russian official, to advise them of imminent sanctions against Iran. On day 11, Flynn traveled to Florida with Trump for a meeting with senior military leaders. On day 13, The Washington Post asked Flynn if his December conversation with Ambassador Kislyak mentioned sanctions on Moscow. He denied it twice. Day 14 was the beginning of the end for Flynn. He changed his story, saying through a spokesman that he had no recollection of the subject matter to The Washington Post, who reported that day that he did discuss sanctions. On day 18, February 13th, President Trump asked for Flynn's resignation letter. Like the administration he served, Flynn took an unorthodox approach to National Security Advisor. When he waltzed into the briefing room to put Iran on notice, a source tells Vice News that the person in charge of Iran policy at the National Security Council learned about it alongside everyone else by watching it on TV, suggesting that the deeply compromised Flynn was intimately involved with the president's decision-making on national security. The farther that investigators get in figuring out the secrets Flynn was exposed to and the decisions he participated in, they'll begin to ask, why did the president allow it? Because ultimately, it isn't Flynn's judgment that's at issue here. It's Trump's. It's been 101 days since President Trump introduced his travel ban. The order was in effect for just 7 of those days. A federal judge in Seattle blocked the first version a week after it was signed, and the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco affirmed that ruling. Then, in March, Trump introduced Travel Ban 2.0, and judges in Hawaii and Maryland blocked enforcement of that one. Today, 13 judges on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond heard oral arguments in the government's appeal of the Maryland ruling.
Even after the second order, there was sort of a wink and nod that, well, you know what I mean, even though it was changed.
But the more the government says about the ban, the more it seems to hurt its own case.
One of the main issues with the case being heard today is whether the second version of the travel ban is legally any better than the first one. The Fourth Circuit probably won't rule for a while, but we can get some clues from the opinion issued in March by the judge in Maryland, Theodore Chuang. He was persuaded by the plaintiff's argument that the travel ban was in fact a Muslim ban, which would violate the religious protections of the First Amendment. The evidence he used consisted of statements from Trump himself and his staff. Like other judges, Chuang cited Trump's call during the campaign for a, quote, complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. Taking up the second order, Chuang again turned to the public record. Senior White House advisor Stephen Miller said in an interview that the second version of the travel ban was essentially a technical fix to the first.
Fundamentally, you're still going to have the same basic policy outcome for the country.
And Press Secretary Sean Spicer said that the principle remains the same. The White House even acknowledged in the text of the second order that it was rewritten to get past judicial concerns. All of this signaled to the judge that the intent of the second order was the same as the first one. As he put it, quote, to approximate a Muslim ban without calling it one. So he blocked enforcement of one provision of the order, the one denying any new visas to travelers and immigrants from 6 majority Muslim countries. Today, the judges on the Fourth Circuit brought up the Trump team's statements in their review of the case.
He's never repudiated what he said about the Muslim ban. It's still on his website.
At some point today, however, the statement the judge was referring to was scrubbed from Trump's campaign website. There's a good chance that the Fourth Circuit will affirm that injunction, and the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco is likely to affirm the ruling in Hawaii. That means the travel ban may end up before the Supreme Court. And if the White House wants to help its chances there, there's one rule it should try to remember. Don't comment.
For decades, Mexico grew accustomed to a constant stream of people leaving the country. But that tide has reversed over the past 8 years, with some 3 million undocumented immigrants having returned to Mexico after being deported from the United States. And without the experience or support to navigate life in a country they left long ago, many of those people are falling through the cracks.
Eric and Kimberly live in Morelos, Mexico, with their parents, sister, and cousin. It's Easter, and they're spending the day at the park while the adults try to make a little extra money. They were both born in California, making them U.S. citizens, but were forced to move to Mexico 8 years ago after their mother, Maria, was detained and deported.
¿Quién le puso los patines al niño? Y están al revés.
Se consideran estadounidenses y mexicanos.
Sí, estadounidenses y mexicanos.
Technically, they are both, because any child born to a Mexican parent has a right to Mexican citizenship. The problem is they can't claim that right because they don't have Mexican birth certificates. Their mother didn't get them from the Mexican consulate in California when they were born. As an undocumented immigrant, she was scared of going to any government building. Without those certificates, Eric and Kimberly aren't guaranteed access to all sorts of public services in Mexico, like education and free universal health care.
Si ellos no tienen ya su doble nacionalidad terminando la secundaria, ellos ya no pueden ir a la prepa.
¿Has tratado de cambiar eso, de conseguir las actas, los documentos?
Pues ahorita, pues es lo que voy a verlo.
Eric and Kimberly's problem isn't unique.
Ayuda, mija. Hacer una salsita para combinar.
Priscila and her brother Brian live with their grandparents in Morelos, and they don't have Mexican birth certificates either. It's made it hard to care for Brian, who suffers from asthma.
Ya veo que las cosas son un poco difíciles para la familia. En cuanto te sientas mal, dime. Pero no me dices.
¿Por qué no le dices que estás enfermo?
Para que no se preocupen. Pero a veces nos mira pues tronando los dedos que a veces no hay. Y todo por las actas.
¿Y conseguir las actas les cuesta también?
Porque se tramitan las dos. Creo que son como 3,000 pesos que pago cada vez que voy
Y pues lo que se gana no es mucho. Aquí gana uno 200 pesos por día.
So, pagando 3,000 pesos para ir a conseguir las actas, cada vez que has ido, le cuesta más de un mes de empleo.
Sí.
Today, the Mexican government estimates that almost 300,000 Mexican-American children, about half of all of those living in the country, are living without essential government services because they don't have Mexican birth certificates.
Hemos sido históricamente y masivamente un país de expulsión, ¿no? En ese sentido, el tema migratorio no nos había importado como país.
Mónica Jacobo Suárez is a professor at one of Mexico's most prominent research institutions. She's one of the few people who's been studying the surge in undocumented children.
Cuando tu acta de nacimiento no es mexicana, las autoridades quieren tener algún proceso adicional para ver que esa acta de nacimiento es verdadera, ¿no? Esto complica completamente las cosas.
2 years ago, Mexico signed an agreement with the United States to make it easier for these children to prove their dual citizenship. But Mónica says Mexico isn't doing nearly enough to actually implement any of the changes.
No basta con que lo saquen, sino que tienen que hacer muchísimo trabajo de difusión a nivel estatal y a nivel local para que la gente se entere que tiene estos derechos.
Morelos, where both families live, is one of the few states in Mexico that is taking the issue and new agreement seriously. Since 2014, it's been working closely with the U.S. Embassy, which has been hosting events where undocumented children can apply for their U.S. passports. The most recent event was held the week after Easter.
¿Quiénes son los niños que van a recibir sus pasaportes? Levanta las manos.
Maria, Kimberly, and Eric were all there.
Como diplomáticos, una de las cosas más importantes para nosotros es atender a nuestros ciudadanos. Y para ustedes, niños, es parte de nuestro trabajo.
At the event, a representative from Morelos helped walk each family through the new process for getting Mexican birth certificates for their children.
Entonces, aquí, una vez que concluyamos este trámite de pasaporte, te acercas con nosotros, ya ubicas dónde están nuestras oficinas para generar tu folio y brindarte todo el apoyo hasta que los menores ya tengan su acta de doble nacionalidad.
Está súper genial, yo no sabía eso. Muchísimas gracias, de veras, porque yo creo que si no estuvieran ustedes, ya la verdad no sé ni cómo.
By the end of the morning, officials from Morelos helped Maria's family and about 25 others. But the Solanos were not among them. Their problem is a bit more complicated.
Sí tienen las actas.
Pero necesitaban corrección.
Vamos a hacer una oración, hijos, para comer.
The Solanos have been waiting for 6 years for Brian's American certificate to be fixed. It's the only way he can get his Mexican one. Neither the Mexican nor U.S. government can help them with Priscila's right now.
Pues de él nada más corrección del apellido. Ajá. Y Priscila pues no tiene el nombre del papá en la acta.
These sort of clerical errors might not sound like a big deal, but right now Mexico doesn't have the infrastructure to easily fix these mistakes.
He ido a la embajada y no se ha podido arreglar eso de las actas.
A great many of these folks, they're not people of means. They're not people used to dealing with complex organizations like the U.S. Embassy, the U.S. government, or the Mexican government for that matter. I do think we are at risk of not finding, not bringing in, and not documenting some of these people.
In the 3 years since U.S. embassies started hosting these events, the number of undocumented Mexican-American children living in the country has grown by more than 40,000, according to government estimates. Still, Monica says there's room for optimism. She's encouraged that people are at least beginning to talk about this issue now.
De una manera muy irónica, que es mucho más rentable ser deportado bajo la administración Trump que haber sido deportado bajo la administración Obama. Pareciera que puede mucho más el discurso anti-inmigrante y anti-mexicano específicamente para mover al gobierno mexicano que los 3 millones de deportaciones que ocurrieron de alguna manera silenciosa e invisible durante la administración Obama.
South Koreans go to the polls today to vote for a new president. And since the office is suddenly vacant after the impeachment of former President Park Geun-hye, whoever wins will be sworn in immediately. And the leading candidate favors a warmer relationship with Pyongyang, signaling a potential realignment on the Korean peninsula that runs directly against current U.S. policy. Polls point to this man being the new president of South Korea. Moon Jae-in, the son of North Korean refugees and a former human rights lawyer, is a liberal politician from the opposition, the Democratic Party of Korea, who ran and lost against Park Geun-hye in 2012. This year, he campaigned in part on taking a softer line on North Korea, revisiting the Sunshine Policy, which promotes engagement and economic assistance rather than provocation.
미국에게는 한반도 평화 함께 만들자. 북한에게는 핵이냐 남북 협력이냐 선택해라.
This is a major shift in sentiment and the first time in a long time that South Korea and the U.S. have not been in lockstep regarding their treatment of the North. Moon hopes that a policy of engagement will de-escalate the situation.
너무 북한을 궁지로 몰아 세워놔봐야 좋은 게 없을 것 같고 궁지에 몰릴수록 그 사람들도 극단적으로 나오는 거니까 햇볕 정책으로 대화를 풀어가는 게 가장 좋은 것 같아요.
Part of that policy could see the reopening of the Kaesong Industrial Complex, a collaborative economic development site where North Korean workers manufactured South Korean goods, that was shuttered in February 2016 after a round of Kim Jong-un's nuclear tests. Moon has said he also wants to reassess THAAD,
the U.S.'s billion-dollar missile defense system designed to protect South Korea and Japan. Its presence has led to vocal opposition from China and sparked a trade war with South Korea's largest trade partner. If South Korea refuses to host the missile defense system in an effort to engage with the North, the U.S. has to acknowledge this diplomatic pivot for what it is, a rift in a partnership they've taken for granted for a long time.
Every year, the Library of Congress declares a few American audio recordings as culturally significant. Many of the songs are anthems or evoke the idea of protest and perseverance, and one of the latest to be officially recognized is I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, a song with particular resonance in LGBT and minority communities. The library celebrated by asking Gaynor to headline a concert in its iconic Great Hall.
Please welcome to the stage, Miss Gloria Gaynor!
Where's my mic? My mic! The Library of Congress with Gloria Gaynor, like it doesn't get any better than that. So I had to be here. I couldn't miss out.
Disco is just always happy, brings people together, and like, it's good.
Every good gay person would love to hear I Will Survive, and we decided that we would go all in and look pretty, you know, for the occasion. Like, why not? She's like Gloria Gaynor, you know?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Being here today has been, I can't say it's a dream come true because I never dreamed that anything like this would ever happen. To have all of these people come to hear me, to see me, to be a part of this day. Well, I'm going to bring Secretary of the Library of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, to come out here.
When we found out that Miss Gaynor was willing to come to the Library of Congress to give a live concert, we were delighted. In the 70s and coming out of the 60s that were somewhat turbulent when you think about assassinations and just really a time of turmoil. And then when the opportunity came to dance and celebrate life and to celebrate diversity, everybody was dancing to the same songs all over. You have right here at the Library of Congress a special emphasis on American history, the thrill of our curators who had selected materials to show her.
Summertime and the living is easy. Wish I could read it. I looked at that music and realized that I was being transported to benefit by the rich legacy that other artists have left from their art, from their talents. That's what this place is all about. And what an honor to stand there and see that and be a part of it. It's always good to me when people are able to use my song to enhance their lives, to bring them hope, to bring them encouragement, because it is an inspiration and an empowerment for them. At first I was afraid. I was petrified.
I Will Survive has become an anthem. It is a song that resonates with so many people. It does get to the essence of being human and surviving, and whatever you're going through and whatever your circumstance, people can relate to that concept.
That's Vice News Tonight for Monday, May 8th.